Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko, former immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. I am the co-founder and CEO of Laborless, an immigration tech platform that automates H-1B visa compliance, and soon coming to screen near you, PERM notice of filing, posting, and compliance, and the founder of GMI Rocket, which is a digital marketing agency for the immigration and global mobility industry. Today's episode number 140. It is also the last episode of the 2025 calendar year. A beautiful round number, and I'm super excited. Our guest today is Harish Parwani, who is the co-founder and CTO of a company called Crossing. So Crossing is an AI-first immigration platform for lawyers and employers. And Harish has a really interesting background as a person who came to the U.S. to study, got his H-1B, went through the whole process, got a green card, citizenship, and so was an immigrant himself, as an immigrant worker, I should say. Through his career has hired H-1B workers and others as part of management. And also his wife, his spouse, is an immigration lawyer. So he has seen literally every angle of immigration and lived through it. And so, he has taken his technology skills and experience to build this company, Crossing. So we are going to dive into his story, which I'm really excited about. Before we do, I want to give a quick thank you to the main sponsor of this episode, 8 a.m. DocketWise. So DocketWise is an immigration tech company. They do end-to-end case management. They have best-in-class immigration forms in a number of different languages. In fact, some people even use other case management platforms, but they still use DocketWise for forms. They have really customizable questionnaires that you as an attorney or a law firm can send out to your clients. Integrations with all sorts of apps, including some of their own under the 8 a.m. Family. My company, Laborless, has an integration with DocketWise. So many others. They have great customer service. DocketWise. One of the things I really like about them as well is that they support a lot of the industry through content. So they have ebook, they have blogs that are really helpful. They have a podcast, which I've been on before. And of course, they support this show and other efforts by the industry. So check them out if you are an immigration law firm or an in-house team and you're looking for or interested in an immigration case management platform, or frankly, if you're already a user and you want to re-engage and learn about other features that they have, check them out at 8 a.m. So it's the number 8am.com/DocketWise and tell them you heard about them on the GMI Rocket Show. So without further ado, Harish, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited to hear your story, which is a really amazing one, and hear how all of your experiences culminated into building what is now Crossing.
Awesome. Thank you, Roman, for having me on the show. 140 episodes. That's quite an achievement.
I know.
Happy to be your finale guest for what's been a very, very interesting year in the world of immigration.
Yeah, it's been a tough year. It's been a roller coaster of a year. From an immigrant perspective, it's been tough really all around. I kind of am used to, or I think many people are used to, the humanitarian and the border and all that being a political football and hearing about it on the news. But this year it's gone from Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, who were part of the inaugural Trump 2.0 team, talking about how amazing the H-1B is. It went from that to this sort of major crackdown and hammer being dealt on the H-1B and on employment-based immigration. So it's been a hectic year, but it's also been a year where people, law firms and companies, and obviously the foreign national workers themselves, are taking a look at what they're using and how they're even going about immigration. So it's been a really interesting time from a technology standpoint because, companies and law firms are now honestly making decisions that they had been kicking down the road. But we'll get there. So let's talk about you. I love to dive into the story of the founder first. You came, well, actually, before we even talk about you coming to the U.S., you were born in India. You grew up in India. Tell me a little bit about that. I know you obviously ended up going into technology, and you got your bachelor's there, and you got your master's at NYU here in the U.S. Talk a little bit about what was it like? Who was Harish as a kid? I mean, were you tinkering with machinery and robotics? Were you hustling and selling, candy or fixing bicycles? Like, what were you like as a kid there?
Absolutely. Thanks, Roman. So, growing up in Mumbai, which is a hustling, bustling city of tens of millions of people, it was a very interesting time growing up because there was a lot of competition. Like even trying to get into a really average college was um, not easy, just because you're competing against tens of thousands of people trying to do the same thing. So a very interesting childhood. You learn a lot by being on the streets. So you really are forced to be street smart in
Mhm.
terms of how you do things, how you get stuff done, how you compete, how you stay ahead. But I would say I think the biggest change, even before sort of moving to the US, was the fact that I spent a year in Denmark as an exchange student. So through an organization called Rotary International. In this, I'm aging myself here. This was in 96, 97.
Mhm.
When I was 18, I spent a year in Denmark as a cultural exchange student. So spent a year there staying with local Danish families in their homes, three different families for a period of 3 to 4 months each. And then I came back to India and continued my college education. So that, I would say, is probably the defining moment for me sort of growing up. The exposure of being in a country by yourself for a full year in a culture that is very, very different from yours. If you look at the spectrum of cultures, Denmark is way, way, way progressive. And India, till recent, had been fairly conservative in terms of ideology, mindset, etc. So just an absolute shift there. But I would say probably the best year of my life. Spent a year there, got to meet people from every part of the world. Every part of the world. Came back to Mumbai. So the city used to be called Bombay back in the
Mhm.
days till I moved here to the US, and then it's been rebranded to Mumbai. So I'm going to be politically correct and call it Mumbai.
There you go.
Um, but yeah, growing up there was fun. A small family. My parents and my elder brother made up my family. Uh, as much as I love to travel, I knew my experiences within educational institutions, so be it my school or college, were only one part of me growing up. So I was very active with the Rotaract Club there, which was the student body of the Rotary International. I did a lot of work outside college. I also started playing a lot of chess tournaments and was the under 18 chess champion for my city.
Nice.
A fact that I don't, a lot of my friends even don't know about because I don't talk a lot about it.
I did see that you were the captain of your chess team also at the University of Mumbai. Tell me about that. I mean, how did you get into chess? Was it, were you introduced to it by your parents? I mean, how did you get into that and kind of what did you love about it? I'm assuming you had been playing since you were a small kid.
So funnily, I actually was not. I only
Huh?
got introduced to chess when I was in college. So I think I was about,
Wow.
or maybe like a couple of years before college.
Okay.
I was 15, 16, so high school. We had a family friend who was staying with us, and we just started playing chess as a hobby, and I found the intellectual battle on the board very challenging.
Mm.
It's challenging in terms of like, hey, pushing me, to like be creative and use my mind in ways that I hadn't had a chance to. So really, that's where it started, and it quickly expanded me, to me being, loving it, picking up a few books. Back in the days, we did not have the benefits of having everything online and
Hmm.
playing online. So a lot of it was just learning by talking to people, playing in tournaments, etc.
Wow.
But it was a fantastic journey. I loved it. There was even a point of time where I was like, "Hey, should I do this full time, build a career out of it?" But
Hmm.
unlike other sports, chess doesn't have a lot of money in it, so there was we knew it was not going to be a lucrative career unless you were in the top 20 of the world.
Well, since the Netflix show Queen's Gambit, I think it's become a little bit more mainstream and more. Great show, by the way. I don't know if you watched it.
I did. I love it, and
Yeah.
my son has of late also taken to chess by himself. So
Mhm.
I'm really happy to like help him grow and progress in it.
That's very cool. What do you think, just because we're on the topic, I mean, my dad played in the Soviet Union, obviously chess was also and
Yeah.
checkers was very big. So my dad he was kind of a junior sort of champion in checkers. And I think in chess, he was quite competitive as well. So, and it's funny, he tried to, I don't think he ever forced me. Maybe I just don't remember, but I don't believe he ever forced me, but he did try to push it on me. I mean, I think he wanted to play with me, right? I mean, why not? It's a game or a sport, however you want to have, what do you call it? A sport or a game, or how do you call it?
I think that's a big debate out there. People
Okay.
who love and play it will call it a sport. People who don't see the physical aspect of it will call it a game.
Sure.
So there's a big debate about it.
Fair enough. We won't get into that here. But he, it makes sense that he would want to participate in that with me. And I just, maybe I don't know why, but I never took to it. But I know that it is such a beneficial kind of activity to flex your mind through. And then there's so many lessons that you can pull from it. So I'm curious. I mean, you obviously, I mean, you didn't continue it as a career, but you played it quite competitively, and both in college and before that. Did you actively already think about, okay, I won't do this professionally, but I know this will benefit me in the future with work, with life, et cetera? Did you think about that in the early days?
I wouldn't say I actively thought about it. There were lessons from chess and lessons from life into chess that I always found fascinating, right? With any sport, obviously, and chess as well, when when you are down, I think that's when the best comes out from you. And that's really where the grit and determination determines who you are. And I think that's very relevant in life today also. In life, in career, it doesn't matter where, in sport. When you're down, how you come back from it, it's really what matters. And I think that's a lesson that chess definitely taught me early on. You're going to be down in situations, you're going to make mistakes. It's how you recover from them, how you come back from them, how you train yourself to forget about them. So you start with a blank slate the next day, the next minute. And I think those lessons still stay with me. We all go through stuff on a daily basis, and it's when you've had a loss. Let's talk about a particular loss, right? Yes, you want to learn your lessons from it, and it's important that you learn your lessons from it, but you also go with the mindset that, hey, okay, this is great. This was more of a learning experience that rather than a loss. And I think that's really stayed with me through my career. Like, anything that's been negative, I'm like, okay, this is a learning experience. There's probably a reason for it. So I'm not super religious, but I believe there's higher powers that are trying to teach you lessons. And I think that's always the learning for me. There's a lesson in everything that you're doing. It doesn't matter if it succeeds or if it fails, and you need to have your learnings from it, and that's going to make you a stronger player, person, father, husband, human being, name it.
Business owner, it's as well.
That is the big part of it, right? There's always ups and downs when you're running your own show.
So talking about challenges and dealing with them, after you graduated from undergrad, you applied for and got into NYU, and you came here as an F1 student. It's actually great that you had already studied in the Nordics. You said it was
in
Norway,
Denmark.
And you so you came here. What was that like? I mean, now this is not an exchange program for a year, right? Now this is a kind of a full-time program. You went to NYU to study information systems, technology, et cetera. What was that experience like, as coming in as an F1 student? And by the way, did you think to yourself, okay, this is where I'm going to make my life? Or did you think to yourself, come here, get a degree, go back home and kind of use it there?
Yeah. So honestly, I don't really think I thought it through. I was 21, 22 when I came here, still early career. The goal was get a degree, gain some experience, and honestly pay off some of the student debts that you're going to accrue going to a school here, and then see where life takes you. So really didn't think it through as much. But the more sort of I came here, saw the opportunities. Also, if you look at it from a timing perspective, I came here in fall of 2000. If you remember, that's when the dot-com boom was just at its top and just about bursting. So the timing was very, very interesting from that perspective that, hey, before this, it was all about companies that had gone up 10x in valuation in like 3 weeks, and the things were going crazy, and Nasdaq multiples were 100 times PE or more. So things are very interesting, especially being in New York. NYU was a fantastic program. It was a joint program between the Stern School of Business and the Graduate School of Arts and Science. So I got to take classes with other MBAs on core business subjects, as well as hardcore computer science classes with other masters and PhD students. So fantastic program. I mean, there's no place like New York City. Just being in the city itself teaches you so many lessons, around managing time, schedule, etc. Apart from what you're learning in the classroom. So I would say it was a great experience overall. I got my first job straight out of campus recruiting. So I think I was lucky because I graduated in 2001, December. I graduated early. And back then, the economy wasn't in the best of the shape. If you remember, this was 3 months after, or 2.5 months after 9/11. So there was a lot of, it was a very interesting time to be in New York, for sure. But all said and done, the opportunities came in, just being at the right place at the right time. Being open-minded about things, having the right conversations with people, really open a lot of doors for you. And I still tell that to everybody who I meet, right? Just go in with an open mind, have a conversation, talk to somebody. You never know what will come out of it.
Yeah. It was I mean, I was younger. I was in middle school at the time, but obviously New York, the country took a hit economically. The bubble had just burst, and then, I mean, New York was devastated, obviously, by 9/11. And it's just, I'm sitting here thinking about, gosh, how do you just, show up to work or go back to campus recruiting a month later, 2 months later? It's challenging, but everything kind of eventually fades in, and we get used to it, and we sort of deal with the reality that we have. But we also, life has to go on. Any place that is at war or has had anything, I mean, that kind of attack doesn't really exist, frankly, anywhere for the most part. But in any case, so it's great. So you got a job. You despite everything going on, which is, frankly, it's amazing, because a lot of people were out of work. I mean, after the crash and after the terror attacks, it was a difficult time for people, but technology was still booming. It was still growing despite the dot-com bubble. And so you got a job. And was that in New York, or, because I know you eventually ended up in Boston? You got a job in New York.
Yeah, it was in New York. I was working for an investment bank called Credit Suisse, which doesn't exist anymore. They merged with UBS, but
Right.
Worked with Credit Suisse for almost 10 years in 2 separate stints. So, within the technology team, but supporting their risk management system. So always had the technology bent, but also was always curious about the finance side of things, the business side of things. I also spent a couple of years doing equity research for Jefferies on software companies, because I wanted to see sort of how can I stretch myself, extend myself, learn more the business side of things, etc. So I spent, I would say, about 15 more years in New York, working for these 2 companies for the most time. And then we moved to Boston, the Boston area, Massachusetts, generally in 2016. So after having spent about 16 years in the New York metro area.
All right. So you got your New York rubber stamp. You got your New York check mark.
I did, and I often joke that even though here in Boston I'm only about 20 miles away from the ocean, I joke that this is the furthest away I've lived from the ocean my entire life, because New York is right by the harbor. Growing up in Mumbai, I was about a kilometer away from the ocean. So obviously I joke about this, but yeah, I definitely miss being by the water.
Let me ask you, did you ever go to the beach here? You went to Rockaway Beach or Long Island or anything?
Not so much the New York beaches, but more the Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Queens kid, so I go to Far Rockaway.
Here you go.
Sometimes out to Long Island. Okay, so meantime, you graduated as an F1 student, right? You got this job at Credit Suisse, and I know you said you then worked at Jefferies. You went back to Credit Suisse, but in any case, F1 OPT, and then you applied for your H1B visa. They applied for you, and what was it like? I mean, I know it was vastly different then versus what it is now, but this is the F1 process. I've never been an F1 student, but my understanding is it's not as challenging in the sense that the school supports you. You're obviously there as a student. It is less of a kind of headache than applying for a work visa, especially now. What do you remember about now transferring to having this sort of pressure of getting an H-1B visa, et cetera? This was after the cap, because in the early 2000s, the H-1B cap was very high, and it wasn't met, and you could basically apply throughout the year. But at some point, it went down to the 65,000 plus 20. So what was that experience like for you as somebody who'd been here now for a number of years on an F1 visa?
Yeah, honestly, I think it was way less stressful back in the days. So the way it worked back then, and it's very similar even today, is if you shift employers, your process has to restart. So I did shift employers a little bit in that meantime, and both your H1 process as well as your green card process restarts when you shift employers. So back in my days, as you said, yes, the F1 part was very easy. The school sponsors you or helps you with the documentation. You get OPT, which is optional practical training. So you're allowed to work on a certain time period on your F1. So that's what I started doing when I was with Credit Suisse. I started working with them on the F1 OPT, and then they sponsored for my H1. And then when I switch employers, obviously the process restarts. So that's where that's the part that's extremely stressful in today's day and times because of the visa numbers. So back in the days, we didn't have those restrictions. I think those numbers, the cap was still there, but there weren't as many applicants. So you could apply late in the year at most times of the year, and you would still make it in. So it was fairly easy to do that. And so honestly, I joke about this, but during those times is when I got married. My wife came here. She went to Fordham Law, got her LLM, sat for the bar, and she got into immigration. And the joke was all my immigration stuff with my company's immigration lawyers. I would just ask them, hey, do you mind speaking to my wife? She knows a lot about this. And I would just connect them and I'll get out of the scene. So I would say in a lot of ways, while I've gone through it, I was fortunate that I had help on a lot of sides with it. But it was definitely way less stressful. And, I honestly care about the opportunities more. But today, it's a very different world. Like, I know a lot of people who are stuck to their employers because they're sponsoring their visas and green cards and they have to be with them. But again, my journey was in a ways very typical also, from F1 to F1 OPT to H1. And then one of my employers sponsored me for green card. Once I got the green card, you got to wait for 5 years before you can apply for a citizenship, etc. So in general, that process is still the same and people still go through the same. But I consider myself fortunate to have gone through that experience. And I would say having come unhurt from it and untouched from it, apart from minor ruffles here and there. It was fairly smooth journey, although it was a very long journey. And now it's even longer.
So, I mean, that's great to hear. I mean, it's a vastly different world. And, I always say, no one person knows how to fix immigration. And even if we talk about employment immigration, aside from family-based humanitarian, but I always imagine there have to be some low-hanging fruit. Why not just raise the H-1B cap numbers again to at least, I mean, we've done this before, raise it up to whatever, 195, 200,000, at least take a little bit of stress off, open that release valve a little bit. But anyway, we shall see what happens. So you're going through this process. You sponsored for a green card. obviously, and that worked out eventually. Now, over time, you're also progressing in your career. I mean, I know, I'd love to sit and talk to you about everything you learned about every position, but I want to get to Crossing, right? And so over time, I mean, especially up in Boston, you ended up working for a number of companies, and you started working at this intersection of sort of technology and management, working in DevOps, right? Platform engineering, et cetera. So you're building tools within the companies that you're working for, and sort of helping that infrastructure. Okay, you're progressing in your career, which means you're going from individual contributor to a manager of a project, to maybe a manager of a small team. Eventually, I know you were at Constant Contact as director of platform engineering, and from there you went to cargurus.com as the VP of engineering. Across all of these years, you had many, many people that worked for you and under you. And I know that some of those people were foreign nationals, right? So now you went through this fairly easy process, as you said, I mean, fairly stress-free, all things considered. Did you start to see it change now that you were on the other side as the sort of employer that was trying to sponsor these individuals on H-1B visas and others?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, you captured the journey, right? For me, my career has been what I like to call a progression of automation. Like, I've always been somebody who really believes in automating things, and it could be in my personal life, could be in my professional life. I'm always looking for opportunities to automate, and that's where DevOps came in, which later got rebranded to platform engineering. But going back to your question, Roman, so as I started seeing people, definitely the path is getting harder. I would say there's been a lot more competition. Rules have got stricter. Some of the forms and criterias that we have today used to be way, way easier 10 years, 15 years ago. I was talking to my wife, and she was showing me a couple of forms that were 4 pages back when I filled it out for myself, or the lawyers filled it out for me, and they're now like 20-page forms, etc., and with a lot more compliance requirements, and a lot more work to be done on all sides, on the HR side, on the lawyer side, as well as on the foreign national side. So I've definitely seen these progressively get harder. I would not be able to say that, oh, there was a certain definitive point where things change, but with every administration, with every rule, with every event that happened, things started getting stricter and stricter and stricter, and more rules kept getting added, more requirements, more information, and none of it ever gets cleaned up, right? So, without giving you particular examples, I'm sure there are things in the forms that don't make absolute sense. So, for example, we were looking at some forms. I think it was the naturalization form, and there was some questions there that went back to a certain act that the Clinton administration had passed, which is not even relevant anymore, but it's still in the forms. So these things never get taken out; they just get more complex by the day.
It's like technical debt in a code base.
It pretty much is, right? And nobody is bothered cleaning it up because I guess there's no incentive to having a smaller form on either side. But things are definitely getting complex. And then obviously this year has been a whole different category.
So what were some of the things that you were experiencing in terms of frustration? Okay, so there's longer forms. You as the employer, you're trying to hire these people. Maybe they're already working for you on an F1. Maybe you want to hire them and they're overseas, or they're on a different visa in the US. Is that when you started to see the kind of some of the frustrations that immigration created when you were in that position?
So there's a couple of different things that I really saw. So one was lack of information, right? A clear lack of information on what are my options, what is the best path, what are the alternatives, etc. And this I'm talking about from a petitioner or the foreign national's perspective. But I also saw a lot of this from an HR perspective, right? I have not just in my journey at Crossing in the last year, but in the last few years as a manager who's dealt with a lot of HR professionals at my companies, I've heard the word black box, in so many conversations
Mhm.
that I'd be a millionaire if I'd saved a dime for every time I heard the
Right,
word black box.
right.
But literally, that's where this whole journey started. Because everybody kept saying, "Why is immigration such a black box?" And I'm like, it shouldn't be. And then I realized that okay, maybe I just know a lot about it because I've been through the journey,
Hmm.
and my wife's an immigration lawyer, so I hear and see a lot of things in the space. But it should not be a black box for anybody. Yes, it's complex, laws are changing, but in today's day and world, things can be demystified. And that's really, sort of what I kept hearing again and again and again, just across the board, from HR professionals, from people doing like family-based immigration, be it sponsoring their family members or people on green cards who are filing for their citizenship, or individuals who are sort of moving from an F1 to an H1 or from an H1 to a green card.
Hmm.
Across the board, same problems that, hey, we don't know what's coming next. We don't know what the process is. We don't know what the options are. Um, and honestly, I have not seen, I've seen the same problems being consistent the last 15 years.
Interesting.
And that's the part that's fascinating for me. It's like, wait, why has this not been solved? Like things were done in the same manner 15 years ago, where you had a problem, you emailed your lawyer, either the lawyer or a paralegal in their office would get back to you anywhere from a day to a week later. And then you have a follow-up question and you reach out to them and the same cycle goes back and forth. And this has not changed. And I'm like, in today's day and age with AI, that should not be the case.
It's funny. I live in the immigration space. I guess so do you. And a lot of the motivation to build software comes from these experiences. I'm and frankly, I think immigration lawyers, we should pat ourselves as an industry on the back. Really, I mean, the amount of innovation that is in the immigration space, the amount of uh, people who are interested in putting their time and energy into building something for immigration is it's inspiring sometimes. And honestly, it's not the biggest market. I mean, it's not. But people still want to be here and they want to make immigration better and more accessible and all that. And I love that. And I love to, I mean, that's how I have 140 episodes, right? I mean, really, it's truly amazing. Okay. At the same time, I'm currently working with a lawyer. I live in my cabin in upstate New York half the time. And, it's just, they're wonderful small law offices, up there that deal with various things. I had a couple questions about like land use and things, just because I'm a city kid. I don't know what everything I could do on my little piece of little tiny little property up there. And the amount of, I mean, I asked them to do, I asked them a question and they said, sure, let me get back to you to see if we can even help you. Okay. A day and a half later, I got an email back and it was a pretty detailed email. And they said, look, we think that you can probably do this on your own. Here's what I would look at. No need for a consultation. I said, and it was strange because I asked them for help and I said, okay, well, it sounds like I can do it on my own, but what if I want to pay you to do it for me? Because you know this better than I do, even if I can look up the town ordinances. And, they said, sure. So first case, they pushed me off. I mean, I don't know, maybe they don't need the business, but I said, I had to convince them to let me pay them to help me. Okay. And they said, great, we would love to help you. I said, wonderful. Please sign the intake form below and put in your credit card information in the registration form below. And by the way, these were attachments in a PDF. I opened them and they're just scanned pieces of paper. It's not even a PDF that was typed. It was a scan. And I said to them, and I'm very conscious not to be the big city guy, telling them what to do. But I said, guys, I'm not comfortable putting my credit card information into a document. And so all of this back and forth, and it made me realize that I think immigration is a relatively cutting edge vertical in the legal space. I think a lot of technology starts here, and maybe expands into other practices of law, areas of law. I mean, but I just wanted to touch on that point because and by the way, I think that part of it is that so many immigrants who are the founders of these companies or people who have dealt with immigration happen to also be very driven and very, well educated, or at least intelligent individuals. And so this sort of confluence of positive attributes and frustration on top of that leads to building products. So just wanted to share that story, that I start to think to myself, who's still doing it? There's no way there are lawyers that are still sending scanned pieces of paper for me to fill out and send back to them. I really
you
would
will
be
be
curious.
surprised. You will be
Exactly.
surprised, Roman.
Yeah, I was surprised, and then I was like, I don't know how to deal with this. Let calm down, Roman. I know you're a legal tech person, but calm down. Work with them, right? Work with them. But in any case, okay. So you saw that from your perspective now as an employer. By the way, your wife this whole time is an immigration lawyer. What has she, during this time, what was she telling you? I mean, what was the sort of overlap between having your own experience as an immigrant and also obviously working as for an employer and being responsible for sponsoring folks? But what were you hearing from her over the course of the years that she worked as an immigration lawyer?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I look at, and I think I briefly mentioned that, like, I'm all about automation, right? My entire career has been about how can I make things quicker, faster, better, cheaper, more secure. Like, that's literally summing up my entire life in 9 words here. So as I looked at sort of the workflows that my wife had been going through, and honestly, not just her, a lot of her friends, things really haven't changed. I still remember 15 years back when immigration case management tools started becoming a more sort of common commodity. It was still the same thing. Yeah, you send a questionnaire, you get back information, you get back documents, and somebody in the lawyer's office, so if it's a solo practice, yes, the lawyer itself will go through it. If they have paralegals, the paralegal will go through the information, make sure everything's right, look at the uploaded documents, see if they're missing something, if they need anything else. Then you shoot an email back to the customer and say, hey, by the way, yeah, this looks good, but we still need A, B, C, D, and E. And then wait for X amount of time, say a week later, the customer sends back 3 out of those 5 documents you've asked for. And then again, somebody at the law firm goes through all this, makes sure, yeah, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, we have this, this, this. We still need these 2 things. And they email back the customer. And then this back and forth happens a few times. And that's really, what I've seen has not really changed. So when honestly ChatGPT first came out in its current avatar with GPT 3.0, I think it's almost like 2 years now. That's when sort of we saw the opportunity. I'm like, wait, we don't need this back and forth anymore, right? Why, as a customer, should I have to upload documents, wait for somebody to look at it and give me feedback a week later? And then I send them something. So like there's time wasted on both sides, from the customer side as well as from the lawyer side. And really, that's where, having been in both those shoes, I was like, wait, we have to solve this problem holistically. We have to solve it for the customer. Now, this customer could be HR professionals at larger companies who are sponsoring, or they could be individuals who are doing citizenship or family-based green card applications or asylum applications, whatever the case might be. So we got to solve it holistically for the customer as well as the lawyer, but you can't solve a problem on either sides. So that's really where the idea came in, and be like, okay, no, I think we have visibility into all sides here, and we can fix this problem holistically for the industry, right? So the moment you upload your documents, you should be able to get real-time feedback saying, hey, great, you've uploaded these 4 things. We need these 3 other pieces of information. Once you upload these, you've got most of the stuff that you've done. And so no need for manual questionnaires to come in, because I would say 80% of the information you type in the questionnaires is in some supporting document that you're already submitting. So that's really where me and my co-founder started, talking about crossing, and we're like, hey, we can really honestly cross paths between the client and the lawyer and simplify lives for both of them. So it's not just about crossing as in your immigration journey, crossing into another country, but this is also about crossing paths and simplifying things for both sides of the spectrum here. And that's really what. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's really where the ideas came in, and we're like, no, we got to solve this holistically. Yes, how we going to sell this and who's going to use what part, we will figure out. And this
Sure.
is, I'm taking back about a year when we started the journey, but we got to solve the problem holistically. And honestly, that's really what I feel super proud of. We're like, hey, we're not just helping the lawyers automate the entire platform for them, but we're helping their customers
Mm-hmm.
automate their lives. So it's time saved on both sides, so that there's this back and forth is not there. You have a lot of information available immediately, and there is this no black box syndrome. So one of the things that I'm
So
really proud.
but
Sorry, go
before we
ahead.
jump, yeah, no, it's okay. Before we jump into that, because I think this is a really important a moment. You've had this discussion with your. First of all, who is your co-founder? Because you just threw that in there, but who is the person that you kind of had you been working with them?
Yeah. So there's somebody who's also very technical, so they're sort of helping me really build out the platform.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little behind the scenes, so I'm not going to throw out names here, but
Okay.
he is an expert in all things technology, in using AI the best way and building a secure platform. And sort of he's been sort of a little behind the scenes, and he likes to stay behind the scenes. So I'm
Got
going
it.
to keep it that way.
Gotcha. So you are the CTO and the CEO, I suppose.
I'm wearing multiple hats. I like to.
Gotcha.
The technologist in me is still the predominant force here. So but yeah, it's once you're a founder, no other titles matter, right?
That's
Or
right.
a
That's right.
co-founder.
So, before we jump into sort of what Crossing does and who it helps, I just want to take a quick pause. I just want to give a quick thank you to the second sponsor of the show, Lawfully. And so, Lawfully actually started as a mobile app to help individuals and families track their own immigration cases. So, solving a problem for the sort of end client, if you will, the individuals who are immigrating. And they've actually helped over 2.5 million people track over 6 million cases. And I give those stats as of a couple of months ago when they came on as a sponsor of the show. I suspect that those numbers are quite higher now. But in any case, last year in 2024, the Lawfully team saw that there were some users that were tracking hundreds of cases or even thousands, and they started looking at the data and they realized that those individuals were actually professionals, so lawyers, law firm employees who were using Lawfully to track cases. And so that ended up turning into Lawfully Pro, which is a part of Lawfully that helps immigration law firms, in-house mobility teams, and nonprofits and other organizations, stay on top of cases for their clients or their employees across USCIS, NVC, DOL, EOIR, and address case status questions. Use the data that they have across all of these cases to see what processing times might be, et cetera. So it's a great tool. There are well over 100 organizations that use Lawfully Pro today. So just for any immigration lawyers or corporate, teams, global mobility teams that want to learn more about case tracking, and now actually Lawfully has a really cool data and intelligence product. Check them out. The website is lawfully.com, LAWFULLY.com. So thank you to Lawfully for being a sponsor of this episode. So Harish, for you, you've realized that there's a problem. You have multiple angles, from which you can take this, because again, you came here as an immigrant, went through the process. You worked as a director and VP, and you've hired people and have been the sponsor. And your wife is an immigration attorney, so you have the trifecta. You built Crossing, you have a co-founder, and the idea, of course, is to create something that's easier to use, et cetera. Talk a little bit about what does it do? Like, what
Sure.
can I expect? I mean, because look, there are a number of companies that are solving problems for immigration law firms and companies and individuals. Ultimately, any founder you talk to, even somebody who built this 20 years ago, they'll say that their goal is the same. Like, they saw this problem just a couple of decades earlier, right? So, how do you, I guess, differentiate Crossing, or what are you most excited about the product, and why do you think, because you left your full-time career for this? So what do you think is the thing that kind of sets the company apart?
Absolutely. Thanks, Roman. And you rightly identified, right? So it's the trifecta that gives us a unique view into it. So we everything we are building or doing has a huge customer centricity to it. Like our entire goal is to be customer centric. So when I started hearing from people the word black box, I'm like, okay, that's the first thing we got to fix. So I often joke and I tell my customers this: if you can order pizza from Domino's, you
Mm-hmm.
can sponsor somebody on an H1. And it throws back people a little bit. I was like, let me show you how. Because how when you order pizza from Domino's, it shows you this pizza tracker where pizza is getting baked and then somebody is going to deliver it, etc. So we've built an immigration tracker um, to do something similar, to show the people that, show both HR professionals and the foreign nationals
Mm-hmm.
exactly where the process is, what's pending, what's waiting, what are the next step, what's estimated on the next step. So think of it, I would say in industry terms, think of it as a very, very advanced client engagement portal
Mm-hmm.
where you are not just doing one-off Google form types questionnaire, but it's really an interactive portal. So it shows you everything that's going on in your universe, the news that's pertaining to you, where your case is, what the next steps are, who is your case waiting on. And it might be on you to upload some documents. It might be on somebody else in HR to provide company information. It might be on the hiring manager to provide job description. So complete clarity on the process is sort of our key USP when it comes to showing companies why this is useful for them. Now,
Mm-hmm.
on the flip side, from a lawyer's perspective, there are no more questionnaires they have to set up. They don't have to send out questionnaires. We've got inbuilt intelligence where based on what type of case it is, what are the latest government requirements, we already ask the customer all the right information. And literally, once the customer's done uploading the information, you get a full package ready. So you don't have just forms ready. You've got the entire package ready. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, in something like an H1, which has multiple steps and there's an LCA, etc., in the middle, there's automation built on that. We do, for example, automatic wage determination. So the moment an employer has uploaded the documents that they need to upload, we will extract the job description. We will match it to the right ONET code. We will take that information, look at the job location, and give you information from the DOL's website,
Mm-hmm.
all in a matter of a few seconds. So in a few seconds, we've done all that work that would take weeks and a lot of back and forth. So the employer can now look at, is this tier one, tier two wage, tier three, tier four, and decide accordingly. And this is going to get even more important with the new H1 lottery system that's being implemented for next year. So on the lawyer side, when they receive all this information, they're not just getting documents, they're getting a full report on what was uploaded, what's missing, and literally they're getting the full package ready for them. So
Mm-hmm.
cover letter, G28 forms, all the actual forms, all the supporting documents, and we are running this entire package through specific AI agents we've built, which tell you if there's anything missing. So, for example, um, well, say you filled out a form with the wrong payment because the government fees has just changed. This will flag it right away.
Mm-hmm.
So the chances of a package getting rejected are drastically reduced with our tool.
Okay.
Say the employer missed a signature on one particular page and you didn't happen to notice it. Our AI agents are checking for all those things behind the scenes. So the chances of rejection, RFEs are drastically reduced with us. And it's really simplifying the work. So, think of it as, if you have, you don't need paralegals or fewer paralegals to do the same amount of work that you were doing in the past, because now Crossing is doing all that for you. We're also working on a couple of advanced email-based automation where you can just email the Crossing agent to do things for you. It will do it in the background and come back to you because, as we know, lawyers don't like changing their workflow. So they like email and they want to stick to email, and we'll support that also. But the core is behind the scenes, we've got multiple AI agents that check every single document that was uploaded and give you real-time feedback. So if you uploaded a document that's not very legible, you'll know in 10 seconds, hey, this document is not legible. Or if by mistake you uploaded the passport of your brother instead of your own passport in a rush, it'll tell you right away. So you're just cutting the time on both sides. And we believe creating application packages, the time it takes to create application packages can be shrunk by about 90%. We think you can actually get complete packages done in hours instead of weeks.
Where does, a big question, I mean, it's a lot, and there's a lot that immigration lawyers can take out of, thinking about how you are presenting it. I want a big question, however, because you are, marketing the company as an AI first, I guess, right? The core is artificial intelligence. A big question often comes up from lawyers is where's their data getting, how's your are you training your data on some kind of data? Are you pulling from the internet? Are you generating something, or are you only using, let's say, some limited documentation or primary, secondary sources? What are the kind of levers that users can pull, temperature-wise, for example, in terms of what's being generated on a cover sheet? This is some of the things that I've continued to see, and rightfully so, are questions that immigration lawyers specifically have, right, when they're thinking about an AI tool, right? There are drafting tools. Your Crossing obviously sort of built drafting into the entire process. So what can you share a little bit about kind of where AI comes in, so that, we understand maybe how that layer plays into the Crossing platform on top of, the process automation that you've talked about as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing that we have been cognizant from day one is keeping things super secure. So no customer data is ever used in training anything. Like point blank, we've built the company on that trust model, right? Every single AI automation that's done uses closed proprietary systems that we've incorporated. So we don't send your data or anybody's data to OpenAI or Anthropic, etc. Because as much as they say they don't use the training data, there have been cases where they've had to retain all the data that comes in because of lawsuits and other things. So everything we do is in our enclosed system, with nothing going out. So that, and that's really been the core of what we're building. Like, it's, we're not using your data for anything, and we guarantee your data is not going out anywhere. It could be something as simple as a cover letter, or it could be something way more complex about the full package, or how you are, for example, presenting an O1 application, which has a lot more nuances to it. So everything's in our systems, everything's secure, everything's encrypted both at rest and in transit. So it's bank-grade security around everything. But on the AI side, what we do is we look at specific models and we host the models in our own infrastructure so that nothing goes out. So we have strict controls on what's going out into the wider world, because we've already seen some data leaks in the AI space, and I think this is only the beginning. There's going to be a lot more. So, our customers' data, our client data is the most important thing to us, and we don't compromise on that.
So who would your target audience be? I mean, where people are listening to this podcast, this interview, they're learning more about you, about Crossing. You obviously, as you mentioned, I like how you said finance level kind of encryption. I mean, you come from the finance world. My CTO actually as well for Laborless comes from the finance world. He's built incredibly sophisticated platforms at investment banks and other financial institutions that hold millions of data points, some of the most I guess secure data, and so I like that you brought that up. Who are you selling to, right? I mean, who should be what is the profile that should go in and check out Crossing to see if maybe it could work for them, maybe it could supplement what they're already using, et cetera?
Yeah, so we're targeting both immigration lawyers who are working independently, as well
Hmm.
as lawyers who are working in-house for companies. If your goal is to reduce the amount of time it takes to create applications to provide support to your customers, if your goal is to increase the accuracy of your packages, get fewer rejections, get fewer RFEs, you should be looking at Crossing. And we're building a lot of automation on a very fast basis here. Our goal being not just the application side, but also the information side. So a lot of lawyers spend a lot of time answering emails from customers on basic questions. It could be case statuses. It could be, hey, what does today's proclamation of the government is going to pause on diversity visas mean for me, for example, right? And there's so much news coming out. And we really want to save time for attorneys so that they can focus on more value-added things. So that's really our goal here. Simplify the process, reduce the amount of unnecessary back and forth you have to do with customers, and make yourself more productive. And honestly, we're estimating lawyers who use Crossing can um, handle 3x or 4x the amount of caseload that they can handle today because we've automated such a big chunk of the entire process for them.
So my last question on this thread would be, is this made primarily for employment-based immigration law firms, and obviously if it's corporates, the teams are doing H's, L's, et cetera. But can you also support immigration lawyers that maybe focus more on family-based immigration or individual kind of investment, E2s, yeah, EB1As, right, EB2NIWs, O1s, kind of more on the individual side?
Yeah, so it's both. So I'll tell you where our sort of roadmap is. We've already released a bunch of things for employment-based H1s, etc. We've released citizenship. We're working on family-based green cards right now. Should be out in about 2 weeks. So about every 2 weeks, we're adding a new category. So over the next 2 months, we would have covered pretty much everything. I would say, with the exception of asylum and removal, which will be coming into next after that. So in about a quarter's time, we're expecting to cover every single landscape there. Honestly, it's very easy for us to do because AI is doing a lot of work for us, and it's keeping track of what forms are changing, what regulations are changing, and adopting our systems in real time.
Okay, before we jump to finish up, I do have a couple comments here. We have a LinkedIn user who said, "Hooray for reducing admin work for all stakeholders," which is huge. I mean, the idea here is that it's not just for the law firm or for the in-house; it's for everybody, and of course the individual. And then we have Oksana here on LinkedIn that says, "Really pointed out AI-driven quality assurance is great and helpful," and I think that is a good point. If you think about quality assurance with sort of more traditional immigration technology, a lot of it was logic within fields. So if you input certain data into a field, it might flag it as incorrect or whatnot. Now you have more sophisticated QA using artificial intelligence. So Oksana, it's a really great point, and maybe for you, maybe that's something to look. That's something that caught Oksana's attention. Hey, maybe that's a marketing you can do.
Absolutely. And we also have separate modules. So if somebody doesn't want to use the entire platform and just wants to use the quality assurance piece, you could just use that and upload your packages and we'll quality check it for you.
Cool. Very nice. So, okay, so you're, moving forward, you're getting into humanitarian, you're getting into family-based. I guess my last question is a bigger, or broader question that I like to ask, especially for founders that are kind of still in the early stages, right, of building the product, building the business. What advice are you listening to right now? Like, what advice is pushing you on a daily basis or reminding you of the right things, et cetera? You gave some really great advice and earlier of what you pulled from, chess and what that has taught you. And I'm sure you've had experiences where it felt like it's all over, or it was a big challenge, or somebody said, "What a dumb idea," and how do you deal with that? So, but what advice are you listening to right now that's helping you move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the one of the key things that I've learned and I still continue to learn is I'm getting a lot of great advice from mentors, and I'm honored to have an advisory board that has been fantastic, has a lot of experience. But what I'm realizing is you have to still go through the journey yourself, right? And the quicker and sooner you learn, the better it is for both you, your company, folks around you. So yes, you're going to get good advice from people, but to be able to fully understand and adopt it, you have to go through the journey and go through those troughs and downsides and losses and mistakes yourself. But the key part is now, because somebody has mentioned it to you, you'll bounce back very quickly saying, oh, listen, I'm not the only one who's going through this. So
Right.
I find it fantastic talking to other founders, co-founders, to others in the industry. And a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, I've been through that. And when you see where they've come in, and you're like, okay, you know what? Like, this is not the end of the world. Like, this is a small bump in the journey. And it's very cliched, and they said the road to success is not linear. And we all hear and read about it, but it actually, like, you have to go through those bumps. Otherwise, you're not going to learn from those, and you're not going to become a hardened and seasoned founder to be able to like get to the top, right?
I love it. Yeah, it's great advice. Especially early days. I've felt myself becoming more hardened. I take no's much differently now than I did 2 years ago, certainly 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I used to take it actually very personally. I mean, it would really, my emotions throughout the day would fluctuate tremendously. I mean, I get off a call. It's not even about getting new business. It's about you get off a call where you tell someone about Laborless and they said, oh, what a great idea. You feel on top of the world. And then I talk to another lawyer that says, well, why would I ever use technology for this? And I feel, well, what the heck did I leave my career for? You know, all in one day.
Yeah.
So it's you're right. I mean, over time you learn that, and talking to other people, you learn that as well. Harish, where can people contact you? Where can people find you? And I guess lastly, what is the website for Crossing if people want to learn more about the product?
Sure. Crossinglegal.ai. My email is harish@crossinglegal.ai. I'm on LinkedIn, Crossing Legal. So just reach out, whatever works for you folks. Happy to show demos, talk about the product, talk about collaborations. We really believe in solving the problem for the industry, and there's various ways to do it. So we're open to all those suggestions. And you can see Crossing is the brand we go with, but the full name is Crossing Legal.
Awesome. Harish, thank you so much. This is a great conversation. Really love to learn about what you're building. There's so many great tools nowadays that are AI based that are trying to solve immigration. And what I really love to try to do is pull out like what are the small differences between these tools, because that could be the thing that somebody who's listening might say, oh, I need that, or I really want to try that. And so the more options people have, the better the industry will be, and the better the products will be, because it pushes all of us right to build and to grow. So thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me on the show. And as always, I wish you the best of luck. I'm excited to follow you and follow Crossing, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show at some point in the future.
Thank you, Roman. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Love talking to you about the whole journey, and yeah, would love to come back and show you progress and update you at some point.
Awesome. Thank you. Last episode of the year. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for folks who have been commenting. Of course, I do want to give a major thank you to 8 a.m. DocketWise again for being the main sponsor of this episode. So DocketWise again is an end-to-end immigration case management platform that have immigration forms. I mean, and it's hard, by the way, to keep up with immigration forms. Changes happen all the time, and lawyers need to have those changes available to them, as quickly as possible. So they have an entire team that's focused on that. Questionnaires for to send to their clients. So whether they're corporates or individuals, all immigration lawyers are, have something for them in DocketWise. Integrations with all sorts of tools, payment tools, calendar scheduling tools, you name it. Laborless, my company, right? And customer service. As I mentioned earlier, DocketWise also is great for supporting the industry. So they have a podcast, they have an ebook, they have a lot of different blogs about, many questions that pertain not to legal updates for immigration lawyers, but sort of to the practice, right? I mean, how do you switch your immigration vertical? Maybe you've been doing humanitarian. How do you get into business immigration? Things like that. They're really great blogs. And of course, I thank them for being a sponsor of this show. So check out DocketWise at 8am.com/DocketWise. Also, the link is in the show notes. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for tuning in. Again, this is the last episode of 2025. So I'm really excited for future episodes in the new year. I've got some great guests coming up. And obviously, if you know of any guests, because I can't know everybody, if you know of any guests building cool tech and other things in the immigration and global mobility industry, please let me know. DM me, send them my way. I want this show to be something that brings new ideas and new companies to our industry. So I sometimes lean on all of you to help with that. So with that, Happy New Year, happy holidays. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe and peace out.